Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today for these spiker shorts I'm going to be using, I love this yarn, I'm like always using this yarn. It's a medium weight 4 and this color is the color linen, so it's like a really nice light tan color. And we'll also be needing a pair of scissors, a measuring tape, and I'm going to be using 3 hooks today. I always like doing my waistband a little bit with a smaller hook because it just gives it more stretch. So I'm going to start off with my E hook, and then I'm going to switch to my F hook, and then finally for the main body of the shorts I'm going to be using a G hook. It's on there somewhere. There we go. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first measurement that you're going to need is your actual widest part of your hip measurement. So the fullest part. You need that measurement because we're going to make a waistband that's going to have to stretch to that measurement. So let's start on the waistband. We're going to start off with our E hook. So grab your smaller hook and go ahead and make a slip knot. And we're just going to start off by making a chain of 8. So and this is for all the sizes. So go ahead and make 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that's 8 chains, and then we're going to go ahead and chain one more for a turning chain. And we're going to skip that turning chain and go into the second chain from the hook. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both for a single crochet. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both for a single crochet. So we're just going to do single crochets all the way down this row, and there should be 8 single crochets total. That's 7 and 8. So 8 single crochets, and then chain 1 and turn your work. And we're going to do a ribbing stitch. So instead of going through both stitches like normal, we're going to just pick up that back loop only and pull up a loop and single crochet. And we're going to do back loop only, single crochets for the entirety of this waistband. So every row is going to be 8 back loop only single crochets, and at the end of every row all we're going to do, let me get my last one, that's 8. All we're going to do is chain 1 and turn our work, and then we're going to continue with back loop only single crochets. And 8, and chain 1 and turn your work. So basically this is all we're doing, is back loop only single crochets, and we're going to continue crocheting this way, continue with this pattern until this ribbing can stretch out to reach your hip measurement. So my hip is, I think it's a 39 or a 40, one of those. So I'm just going to continue until I can pull this so that it stretches to reach that length. So go ahead and keep crocheting. Everybody will have a different amount of rows at this point, but keep going until you reach that measurement, and then I'll show you what's after that. Okay, so I've done my ribbing. For this particular yarn, different yarns stretch differently, but for this yarn, I only needed to make this be 25 inches, and then it'll stretch all the way to 39, which is what I need to fit it over my hips. So that's perfect. And once you have it long enough for your hip, go ahead and line these two ends together. And I actually like for the one with the tail to be closer to me and the one with the working yarn on the other side. So I do try to do an even number so that my working yarn is on the same end as my tail. It doesn't really have to be, but I kind of like doing it that way. Anyway, we're going to crochet these two sides together. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is insert my hook into this first stitch, and then insert my hook into, actually I forgot to chain one over here. So make sure when you're done with this last row that you chain one, just to kind of give you a little space there. Okay, so let's try that again. I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch with the tail, and I'm going to put the tail on the other side. And I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch of the other side. And then I'm going to pull this loop through there, through that first stitch. Pull it through, and then I'm going to pull that stitch, that loop through the side closest to me. Okay, and then I'm just going to chain one. So this chain one, this first one is going to be like a single crochet. From here, I'm going to insert into the next stitch on the front side and the next stitch on the back side, pull up a loop and single crochet. So we're just going to single crochet on down for the rest of these stitches. Just match up the 8 stitches. Make sure you don't skip any. And you should have 7 single crochets plus that little first chain one that we did over there. And I have one left. And now our seam is together. So this will be on the inside of our garment. And now we have a circle, a waistband made. And what we're going to do from here is chain one. And I'm going to pull this a little bit higher, because now I want to switch from my E hook over to my F hook. So we're going to go one size up. So I chained one already. And what I'm going to do for this portion Some of you might have seen me do this before, and all I'm going to do is go around this waistband with single crochets, and I'm going to put one single crochet in every on the side of every row. So you can kind of tell how many rows there are because in between ridges there's 2 rows there, so you should be able to put 2 single crochets on the side of these rows in between the ridges. It doesn't have to be perfect, but try to do the best you can. So we already chained one, and I'm just going to go into like this first stitch here and pull up a loop and single crochet. And that's all I'm going to do for this entire row. I'm still weaving this little tail in, by the way. I think I'm going to put another one here. Yeah. Okay, now it's kind of more uniform. So yeah, I'm just going to try to put one single crochet on the side of every row until I get all the way around to the other side. So go ahead and continue this pattern until you reach the other side, and I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, so it looks like I have maybe one more stitch here. And once you are finished, go ahead and find your very first single crochet. Mine's is like all the way right here. And go ahead and slip stitch into your first single crochet of the row. It might be a little bit tight. Mine is certainly tight, and I am going to cheat. When it's this tight, I'm gonna go get a smaller hook and put it back in there. See if that'll get it to come out, and it did. Okay. All right, so now that we have this first side together, I'm gonna cut this Okay, so after you slip stitch, go ahead and grab your G hook, and I'm gonna chain one first, just for a turning chain, like that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this inside out so that that ugly seam is on the inside of the garment. And I'm gonna turn my work now. So I'm gonna make this, where this seam is, I'm gonna make this my center back of the shorts. Okay, from here what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna do a row of double crochets all the way around, but I'm gonna count them. So you can just do a row all the way around, or you can count them as you go. It's up to you. But what I'm going to do is start off with a faux double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook into the first chain space, first available chain space. Of course it's tight, okay. And then pull up a loop. And then I'm going to single crochet. Okay, and then I'm going to chain one more, but kind of like a looser chain one. And that's kind of like a fake double crochet. I think that looks better than the chaining out 2 or 3 chains. But from there, I'm just going to yarn over and do regular double crochets around. So insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's all I'm going to do is double crochets all the way around for this row. So you just want to know and be aware of how many double crochets that you end up with in this row, and then we'll talk a little bit about sizing when we're done with this row. So go ahead and complete this round, and I'll show you what's after that. So I ended up with 117 double crochets in this row, and I kind of want it to be an even number. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shove one more double crochet here so that I have 118 instead of 117. And after that, I'm gonna go ahead and slip stitch into that very first double crochet here. Okay, so after you get your first row done and you're aware of how many stitches that you have in your row, so I have 118 right now, and everybody's going to kind of have a different amount at this point. So what we're going to do next is continue, and we're going to do 2 more rows of the same amount of double crochets that we've already done. So what I'm going to do is chain 1 and turn my work, and I'm going to go into that very first stitch where I slip stitched, and I'm going to put a single crochet first, single crochet, and then I'm going to loosely chain 1 for a faux double crochet, and then I'm going to continue double crocheting around. So we're going to do 2 more rows of whatever the same amount of double crochets is. So I'm going to do 2 more rows of 118 double crochets, and I will meet you there and I'll show you what's after that. Alright, so I have 1 more stitch in my 3rd row. And then I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that chain 2 that we did. Okay, so everybody, all the sizes at this point should have 3 rows made of the same amount that they started with. So from here, I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And the pattern is going to change now. So this time around we're going to start off again with a faux double crochet like we did. So go ahead and do a single crochet in that very first available stitch, single crochet, and then chain 1. And we're going to start increasing, so we're going to put 1 more double crochet in that same stitch, just like that. So only in the first stitch, sorry, that will get a increase there. The second thing we have to do is find our middle chain stitch on the other side. So go ahead and count out. For me, I have 118, so my middle stitch would be the 59th chain. So whatever that is, go ahead and mark that off on the other side. So I marked off my 59th chain, and then I'm going to mark off my 60th chain also. So I'm going to get 1 more, and I'm going to mark off my 60th chain. So I'm going to have both of those kind of marked off. And we already know where this one is, so we don't have to mark that one off. So after you do your first increase, go ahead and continue this pattern until you reach your halfway point where the stitch marker is. So I will meet you there and show you what's after that. Alright, I'm almost at my 2 stitch markers. Well, I guess I didn't need 2 of them, huh? Because I know where the first one is. But I'm going to go ahead and take both of them out. Alright. And what I'm going to do here is do my next increase. So I'm going to put 2 double crochets in the first stitch. and 2, and then I'm going to put 2 double crochets in the next stitch and 1 more in the very same stitch. So you should have 2 increases in your 2 middle chains on the opposite end. And now we are going to do double crochets all the way around. Oh, and before I keep going, what I'm going to do is just move this up to the 2 center chains of our increases. So these 2 stitches have our increases, and I'm going to pick the 2 middle ones again just to mark those off so I don't forget where they are. Even though you can see them, just for me it's just a little bit easier to mark them off. So yeah, continue double crocheting like normal now until you reach the other side, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so I have 2 stitches left, so in the second to last stitch I'm just going to do my 1, and in the last stitch we're going to do another increase. So we're going to put 2 double crochets into the last stitch, 1 and 2. And now we're going to slip stitch on top of the chain 2 of the first faux double crochet of the row and slip stitch. All right, now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. So now we're going to do the same thing we just did at the beginning of the last row. We're going to put 1 faux double crochet in that very first stitch. So single crochet and chain a loose 1. And then we're going to put 1 more double crochet in that same stitch, so that we're increasing in that very first stitch. And then we're going to double crochet all the way around until we get to our middle stitches. So go ahead and double crochet until you get to your stitch markers. Okay, so I'm almost at my 2 stitch markers again. So I'll do my last one there, and then I'm going to remove my stitch markers. And these 2 middle stitches right above our last increase, the 2 in the middle, we're going to do another increase. So I'm going to put 2 double crochets into the first stitch, and then 2 into the second stitch, and 2. And I am going to put my stitch markers back into those 2 middle chains of the increases. And if you are confident you'll see these, then go ahead and don't worry about stitch marker, but I like to not pay attention half the time when I'm crocheting, so I put them back. But yeah, so now we're going to continue double crocheting until we get to the other side, and we're going to increase there in that last stitch. So I'll meet you there. Alright, so I have 1 more stitch left before that last stitch where we're going to do our next increase. So go ahead and put 2 double crochets in that last stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch on top of the chain 2 of our faux double crochet. And slip stitch. So we're going to continue this pattern for a few rows. The amount of rows that you're going to do depends on your size. So let's see. So we already did 3 regular rows for everyone, and then we've done 2 rows so far. Okay, so once you do the amount of rows for your size, you just might want to slip this on and make sure that this peak kind of comes maybe right above where your crotch starts. You don't want it hanging lower than your crotch because it does stretch a little bit, so it'll be a little bit baggy if you make it too big. So if you're shorter, you might want to do like maybe one less row than I recommended, but you can kind of play around with this and try it on and make sure that it kind of hits right at your crotch. In the back, it's, you know, usually this is going to sit up a little bit higher, but that's okay because it does have a little bit of stretch to it. So in the back, it might stretch just a little. I'm going to pretend that my hook is on the right hand side, and I'm going to chain out to the right hand centermost chain. So I'm going to mark that off. The centermost, there's 2 center chains that have 2 stitches coming out of them that have the increase. I'm going to pick the one on the right that's in the center. I'm going to pick that one and just mark that one off. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to crochet about 2 inches worth of chains, which is about 8 chains, and then I'm going to slip stitch it over here. So I'm going to chain out 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then I'm just going to bring this chain over to the other corresponding middle chain. And I'm gonna slip stitch into that chain space. So it really, I guess it really doesn't matter which one you pick, but when you pick one, you just have to make sure that that you are going to do the other one. So go ahead and slip stitch on that one. So we're on the right hand side of the middle, we slip stitched in. So now I'm going to slip stitch one over to the left. That's the other middle chain. So I'm just going to slip stitch into the next middle chain. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this on its side. And it might be that this chain is kind of facing away from you. That's okay. You can just turn it a little bit towards you before you get started. But we did 8 chains. If you are maybe a size extra large or 2X or 3X, I'll put up some recommendations for you, but for size small through large, you should be able to just do this 2 inches. You can always try this on to make sure it fits you and kind of adjust this chain if you need to, and that's for all the sizes because we are all shaped differently and our bodies need different care for our curves. So what we're going to do now is single crochet on down this chain. So we should do 8 single crochets or as many single crochets as you did on this chain. That's how many single crochet, how many chains you did in this little chain here. I did 8, so I need 8 single crochets. So go ahead and insert your hook and do single crochets back down this chain. So I'm just going to do 8 single crochets, or 1 single crochet in every chain space that I made. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, and I should have one more there, and 8. Okay, so that's what it looks like. But what we're going to do next is anchor it onto the next middle chain. So on the left hand side, we're going to do a slip stitch into that next middle chain like that. So now we're still kind of on the back side of the shorts, the backhand middle side, but I am now on one side of the shorts leg, so I can actually begin this side of my shorts, the leg part. So what I'm going to do is chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work so that I'm going first down this chain space here that we made in the middle. So I chain 1 and turn it that way. And what I'm going to do is simply just put 1 double crochet into every chain space, including the middle 8 stitches that we did. So I'm just going all the way around. And again, before you even start these double crochets on your pants leg or on your shorts leg, you can definitely try this on and just make sure it's not too tight up in the crotch area, or that it's not too loose. So once you do your 8 double crochets, just keep turning your work. Sorry, I got a hand cramp. Keep turning your work, and you can, when you get here, you just want to kind of make sure that you don't skip any chains, or that when you make this chain that you don't have a big hole in it. So once you want to find that cornermost chain space, and just make sure when you go in there that you won't have a big hole. If you do, you can put 2 double crochets there, but mine kind of worked out so that it wasn't doing that. So now that we're on the main part of the shorts and we're kind of like on the other side, just continue doing your double crochets around this pants leg, and I'll meet you back here at the beginning of this row and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so I've made my way all the way around, and when I get to the other side, I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch into that very first double crochet of this row, and then I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. So from here we're just going to repeat this. So I already chain one and turned, and I'm just going to go into that very first available neck stitch and do double crochets all the way around. And so go ahead and repeat this. I will put up on the screen how many rows to repeat this because I'm kind of making this up as I go. But this will be a biker short, so these pants legs, these shorts legs, will be a little bit longer than normal. But I'm just trying to see about how far down I want to go before I start decreasing. Okay, so now I have 6 rows of double crochets without a decrease. And let's see, I always forget which way I'm coming from. Okay, I came from this way, cool. Every time I take a break, I always forget which side I came from, so I can't chain one and turn my work because I want to go the right way. So chain one and turn your work. Okay, so this row I'm gonna put a few decreases in. I'm only gonna probably put 2, and so I'm gonna put them kind of in this middle first 8 double crochet area, but I'm just gonna spread them out a little bit. I just don't really like decreases like visible. Another place I would put them maybe is all the way, if I had to, I would put them kind of on the side maybe. But if you can kind of keep them generally in this little crotch area, they'll be relatively hidden. So what I'm going to do is put 1 double crochet into the very first stitch. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to put a decrease. So I'm going to put yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch and pull up a loop, and then insert into the following stitch and pull up a loop. So now I have 4 chains on my hook. So then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 3, and then yarn over and pull through 2. So that's going to be my first decrease. Then I'm going to do 1 more double crochet, and then I think I'm going to do 1 more before I put my next decrease. I don't like them too close to each other because then they leave a hole there. So now I'm going to do my second decrease. I'm going to get them out of the way while I'm still kind of in this crotch area. So insert my yarn over, insert my hook into the next chain space, pull up a loop, insert my hook into the following chain space and pull up a loop. And now I have 4 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 3, and yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, then I'm going to finish this row with regular double crochets all the way around. Okay, so I made my shorts long enough for me. I did a total of 15 rows after I started my pants leg or my shorts leg. Here I'm gonna start on my border. So I'm doing a ribbing border just like the top. Now it is a little bit different because we're attaching the ribbing to an already existing piece. So what we do, the stitches are kind of in the opposite direction. They're kind of like gonna go vertical as opposed to horizontal. So you'll see what I mean here. So I'm actually switching to a smaller hook too. I don't have my E-hook because I'm on the road. This hook is a plastic F hook because they're actually allowed on the plane. So that's why I kind of have this funky hook here. But anyway, what I'm going to do is go ahead and chain out a chain of 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. From there I'm going to chain one more, and that's a turning chain. So I'm going to kind of turn this so that I can do single crochets going back towards my shorts. But I'm going to skip this turning chain. I only want 8 single crochets. So I'm going to skip my turning chain and do 8 single crochets going back down. Looks like I'm catching something. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one more, 8. Okay. So we can see that our chain came out of this stitch. So what we want to do is anchor this portion to the next stitch. So what I'm going to do is just slip stitch into the next stitch. And that completes like our first row of the ribbing. In order to go back upward, we need to raise it 1 stitch so that we can be at the height of the single crochet. So we're going to actually slip stitch into the next stitch. So every time you come back towards the shorts, you're going to have to do 2 slip stitches, one in the next stitch and one in the following stitch to kind of raise the height up. So what I like to do here, because it kind of gets confusing as you move along to know like which stitch you already used, you don't want to use it twice. So I like to mark those off until I kind of get the hang of what it looks like for me. So what I'm going to do is turn my work, and I like to make sure that my string is coming behind my hook. Okay, so we do know that we just did 2 slip stitches here. We did 2 slip stitches. So that's not technically part of our row. So what we want to do is skip those 2 slip stitches, and we want to do our ribbing stitch into the 3rd stitch away from the hook. So count 1, 2, 3, that's the one you want to go into. And then you'll do your back loop only single crochet going back down towards the bottom of this row. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, from there chain 1 and turn your work so that you can go back towards your short. So now we're going to skip our turning chain and do 8 more back loop only single crochets, and I just like to count them out because you just don't want to make any mistakes. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can also tell where it is because you'll see the bar there. There's a V before a bar. That's always your last stitch when you're doing this kind of attachment ribbing like this. And so now we know that we use this stitch that I marked off already, so I'm going to remove that, and I'm not going to slip stitch into that stitch. I'm going to use the next stitch to slip stitch. So I'm going to slip stitch in that one to kind of seal off what I've already done, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch to kind of raise the height of this row for my next row of single crochets. So once you do your 2 slip stitches, go ahead and turn your work. Oops. Turn your work, and then we can continue doing our rows of back loop only single crochets, but always remember that you did do 2 slip stitches here, so you need to skip those 2 and go immediately into the 3rd stitch, which is your first single crochet of the previous row. So once you kind of get the hang of it, it gets easier. I know some of you probably already know how to do this, but it can get a little tricky. So I do like taking my time with it. And that's 8, and then chain 1 and turn your work. And then we're gonna do 8 more back loop only single crochets back towards the shorts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I know that I used this stitch that I marked off, so I'm going to remove that and make sure I don't go into that stitch. I'm going to go into the next stitch and do 1 slip stitch to close off that row, and then the next stitch to raise the height for the next row. So we'll do like 1 more of these together, and you'll kind of see like the pattern repeating. So I'm going to turn my work. I like this going behind me for this. That's just me. So now I know I have to skip the first 2 slip stitches and do my back loop only single crochet into the 3rd stitch away from my hook. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Chain 1 and turn my work. So now I'm going back towards my shorts, skip that turning chain, and do 8 more back loop only single crochets. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Alright, and then I know I used this stitch that I marked off already, so I'm not going to use that one, and I'm going to put 2 slip stitches, 1 in the next 2 chain spaces. So you can kind of see how this pattern continues. So go ahead and finish the rest of this shorts and go all the way around this leg, and then I'll show you how to seal off this seam once we get there. So I'll meet you there. Okay, so I'm almost there, and I did stop marking off my stitches because I kind of saw where I was supposed to go. So you might end up with a different, like, I'm gonna be kind of coming downwards, I guess, when when my thing is ready to close. And you might be going upwards when it's ready to close, but we're going to close it the same way. So just do as many rows as you can. So I got to skip my 2. So do as many rows as you can, and then we'll close it wherever you are. So I'm going to do my last row here, which is going upwards. So skip my 2 slip stitches, and then I'm going to do my back loop only single crochets. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it just depends on how many rows that you have in your leg hole to where you're going to be with this. But once you run out of stitches here in this base row of the pants leg, I have no more rows to go in. I'm just going to close this up. And so you just want to make sure that you put your seam on the same side as your seam from the beginning. You want all your seams on the inside. So actually this is right side out, so I'm gonna kind of flip this so right the other way so that I can put my seam on the inside of my garment. So there we go. And I lost my hook somewhere. Boom, found it. Okay. So once your garment is, once you have no more rows that, or no more stitches that you can slip stitch in, go ahead and flip your garment inside out, and then we're going to turn it so that we can just slip stitch back down this row. So that's all we're going to do to close off our pants leg. So I'm going to lift that up a little bit, and I'm going to find the corresponding stitch on the opposite end, and I'm just going to draw this loop through. Draw this loop through to the other side and chain 1. That's kind of like going to be my faux single crochet, and then from there I'm just going to single or slip stitch. This time I'm going to slip stitch through the corresponding stitches. So that's slip stitch, and you should have 8 slip stitches going down because you should have 8 single crochets in every row. Actually, this first row is like chain stitches, so you should have 8 chain stitches and 8 single crochets in that last row. And some people will be coming from the bottom side and not going up, but some people will be going that way because it just really depends on how many rows that you had to do for your leg. And I believe I have 2 more. One, and this last one, kind of tricky when you're coming back down because it gets pretty tight there, but I'm just gonna make sure I find the corresponding stitches and slip stitch, and from there I think I'm gonna just slip stitch once more, kind of in the base somewhere, just so it's a little more secure, and then I'm gonna chain 1 and tie off. I'm doing this little needle thing here because I'm on the road. So yeah, you just slide it through and it cuts. Boom. So yeah, then tie off and your shorts are sealed. This is the inside, but yeah, so what we want to do is kind of remember what we did. Make sure you did remember what you did in these rows for this leg hole, because what we need to do is reattach our yarn and then repeat for this next leg hole. So go ahead and grab your working yarn. And what I'm gonna do, I know that my seam is right here. I'm gonna attach my yarn at that very same spot so that my seams are kind of in the same place on the legs. So it kind of looks like my seam is coming from this corresponding spot. So I'm just gonna try to like go into that corresponding spot, and that's where I'm gonna draw my knot, or tie my knot, sorry. I'm just gonna tie a double knot here. So basically you're just gonna repeat the same thing you did for the other pants leg. You can definitely crochet over this string so that it's already weaved in, but it's just a repeating of the previous pants leg. So you drop your loop and start on your double crochets, and you do the same amount of rows with no decrease, and then you do the same amount of rows that you decreased on the other side. So go ahead and complete the pants leg. Just do the same thing that you did over, and you will be finished. I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Sorry, the phone's ringing. Okay, I'll show you what it looks like at the end, and I'll see you there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll pause. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like if you did like it, and subscribe if you do like my channel, and I will meet you on my next video. Thank you guys so much, and bye.